Every day, something dramatic happens in the Caribbean that affects our lives. We'll give you the details. We'll give you the facts on Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick. Host Eddie Frederick.
So glad you can join us. Preliminary report delivered regarding the missing file in an important legal matter in Port of Spain. This story takes the lead in today's edition of Caribbean Perspective for Monday, 3rd April 2023. Details when we return.
Hubbard's Motor Department Mount Gay and Hubbard's Tire Bay, located at the Building Supplies compound in Grand Anse, are reminding the motoring public that another round for licensing and inspection has begun. Just arrived on new shipments of quality furrowed and torque tires to fit all makes and models of vehicles at competitive pricing. Shop early to avoid the hassle of long lines. WhatsApp them on 473-405-5482. Hubbard's, quality service, affordable prices.
Welcome back. Trinidad and Tobago's opposition shadow attorney general is hopeful that government will not use an interim report into a controversial missing file as a smokescreen. Saddam Hussein is concerned that findings of the preliminary and final document into the state's failure to defend against a multi-million-dollar lawsuit will not be made public.
Nearly 2 months after his appointment, retired Justice Stanley Jonas handed over an interim report on an investigation into a once-missing court file. That dossier was reportedly the reason why the Attorney General's office failed to contest a $20 million lawsuit against the 9 men formerly charged with the murder and kidnapping of businesswoman Vindra Naipal Kulman. The document, submitted on Friday and within Justice John's schedule, addressed the first 3 terms and reference of the investigation, including an inquiry into the role or roles played by any minister, member of the Civil Law Department, or any other person employed at the Office of the Attorney General and the Ministry of Legal Affairs in the management of the file in the legal matter. Attorney General Reginald Armour said he was looking forward to the final report with recommendations in respect of their further terms of reference. However, the UNC's Shadow Attorney General Saddam Hussein does not want the findings and recommendations to be lost.
I hope that the government is not using this guise of receiving an interim report to hide this report from the public's view, because at the end of the day, this is quite a large expenditure of public money that has been awarded by a High Court of Justice in Trinidad and Tobago.
Earlier this week, the Attorney General's office revealed that it will challenge the award of the $20 million to the 9 men. Jesse Ramdale, CNC3 News.
The Central Bank of Trinidad and Tobago says while food prices have continued to rise, headline inflation is starting to fall. This as the Monetary Policy Committee has once again opted to maintain its repo rate. Peter Christopher has details in this edition of CNC3 Business Watch.
The Central Bank of Trinidad and Tobago says there are signs that inflation is relenting. In the Monetary Policy Report for March, the Central Bank's Monetary Policy Committee says domestic inflation moderated in January, with headline inflation decelerating by 0.4 points in January compared to December 2022, while core inflation dropped by 0.6 points. However, the central bank notes food inflation remains unchanged, with price increases noted on fish, bread, and cereals. The central bank says the outlook for 2023 looks favorable, barring major external shocks, as estimated growth in 2022 stood at around 2.5%. The MPC says it has agreed to maintain the repo rate at 3.50%.
A UWI criminologist is suggesting high levels of focused intervention to a small group of people may be what Trinidad and Tobago needs to address the escalating crime situation. Terry Ann Brown Campbell of TTT News has more.
University of the West Indies criminologist Dr. Randy C. Prasad said this country needs to adopt a more targeted approach to help solve our crime situation. He gave the example of one international organization's approach.
USAID is right now implementing a crime and violence intervention in St. Lucia, Grenada, and Guyana, and quite possibly Trinidad and Tobago. They're spending $30 million over the next 5 years to do this particular project, but of course, they can't cater to the entire population of these countries.
Dr. Sipasad added, research indicates that crime tends to be concentrated among certain persons in particular areas.
One of their first steps is identifying the communities that have the highest levels of crime. So they will crunch the crime data, look at the spatial distribution of crime, find out very specifically where crime is happening the most. Even when they get into these communities, they will target the youths and the persons who are most at risk.
Dr. Sipasad made his comments while addressing the UWI's national conversation on crime, productivity, and economic growth on Friday. Terry-Ann Brown-Campbell, TTT News.
Director of the National Integrity Action, NIA, Dr. Trevor Monroe, is expressing disappointment at Jamaica's Minister of Finance's refusal to apologize over recent controversial remarks. Nakisa Aleman of CVM Live reports.
Minister of Finance Dr. Nigel Clark has refused to apologize or recant his use of the words Massa Mark in reference to opposition leader Mark Golding, a position that has left the director of the National Integrity Action, NIA, Professor Monroe, expressing disappointment. Professor Monroe notes Golding's apology for his poor choice of words and Member of Parliament Dr. Angela Brown-Burke's withdrawal of her unparliamentary remarks.
The impact brought to the fore the race of the leader of the opposition in a negative and unacceptable light. There's no question at all that in recent times and in the past, members of Parliament and other politicians have used racial slurs against one another. They've used it outside and inside the Parliament.
Dr. Monroe says having brought the Parliament into disrepute and not apologizing is simply unacceptable.
Out of respect for himself and his own reputation amongst well-thinking Jamaicans who are neither Labourite nor PNP, the majority, he should withdraw and apologize.
Dr. Monroe says this behavior accounts for some Jamaicans having so little respect for politicians, while showing little to no interest in what goes on in Parliament. He, however, says he's hopeful for a future apology, highlighting that the minister expressed regret that his words affected some Jamaicans.
That this would lead him to withdraw those remarks out of deference to the tens of thousands who would have had that feeling, and indeed to apologize as part of his contribution to raising the level rather than contributing to the low level of discourse in the House of Representatives.
Dr. Clark said he did not intend for the term to be interpreted as a racial slur. Nasika Aliman reporting for CVM Live.
You're listening to Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick.
The Bahamas government meets with resident Bahamian Haitian leaders. Altovis Munnings of ZNS News reports.
According to Labor and Immigration Minister, the Honorable Keith Bell, the objective of Tuesday night's meeting with local Haitian pastors at the National Training Agency on Gladstone Road was to ensure that all stakeholders were on board with government's intention on addressing the challenges facing Haiti from a regional perspective. But more importantly, how to protect the Bahamas for Bahamians and its future generations.
They were very understanding in respect to the challenges that we have as a country, and I think that it was apparent, and they accepted that the Bahamas is unable to absorb the number of persons. Haiti is a country of 12 million people, and so they want to ensure that anyone coming to the Bahamas, and they understood that persons would have to come through here the right way, that is the legal means, and that if there are persons who come here by boat or irregular means, then there ought to be swift repatriation that was accepted by them.
Since the media wasn't allowed inside Tuesday night's private meeting, Minister Bell also informed reporters Wednesday that a number of recommendations were made, but won't be made public now. Prime Minister the Honorable Philip Davis, however, did grant the media an interview after the late-night discussions and described the meeting as very informative.
The Haitian pastors, as you would have heard, have committed to do their part to assist in dealing with the challenges we're having. They acknowledge it. Most of them are all of them are Bahamians, except one or two who are permanent residents of the Bahamas, and they see the Bahamas as their home, and they want to protect the home just as we who are here, not from Bahamian Haitian descent, to protect our shores, our people, and our livelihoods.
Government engaging in due process is the Haitian pastor's main concern. That's according to the Prime Minister. The Haitian community hopes the process gets the compassion it deserves.
They acknowledge that what I said to them, that we can't deal with one problem to create another problem. And I think all they're concerned about is that due process and a humane approach is taken.
And this dialogue will continue. Prime Minister Davis also revealed that the Haitian community leaders committed to canvass Haitian communities and assist in picking out those who are here illegally and legally. Reporting in studio for the Bahamas Tonight, I'm Altaviz Mannings.
And now for a regional roundup from HGP News, Guyana, with Tiana Cole on Trinidad and Tobago government winning an award of around $100 million, Barbados receiving help with a strategic review of its police force, and Brazil's defeated president returns home to a less than anticipated welcome by his supporters.
The government of the Eastern Caribbean island of Trinidad and Tobago has won a multi-million-dollar verdict in a sprawling corruption lawsuit that began nearly 20 years ago and involves former high-ranking officials. A jury in Miami awarded the government more than $100 million in compensatory damages in a verdict late Wednesday. The civil case began in 2004 when the Trinidadian government sued a former finance minister, various businessmen, and several companies in countries including Florida, Panama, and Portugal. The lawsuit alleged that the defendants participated in a scheme beginning in August 1996 to illegally obtain consulting and construction contracts at hyperinflated prices via bribes, bib rigging, and money laundering, linked to the expansion of the Piarco International Airport in the Trinidadian capital of Port of Spain. The complaint initially targeted 56 defendants, among them 11 individuals and 12 corporate entities, but some secured deals over the years, so only 3 remained when the trial began earlier this month. Experts from the United Kingdom will be in Barbados soon to conduct a strategic review of the Barbados Police Service. The aim of the upcoming exercise, which was requested by Prime Minister Mia Mottley, will be to help her administration design a modern and responsive police service, according to the government statement. The disclosure follows a meeting which Mottley, Attorney General and Minister of Legal Affairs Dale Marshall, and UK Minister for the Americas and the Caribbean David Rotley discussed increased British support for Barbados in tackling serious and organized crime and other matters. Brazil's far-right former President Jair Bolsonaro returned from 3 months in the United States on Thursday and was welcomed back by hundreds of chanting supporters at Brasília's airport before heading straight into meetings with his political party. The turnout was considerably smaller than expected by police, and a minister in the leftist President Luiz Lula cabinet called the reception a flop that showed his weak leadership. Bolsonaro, who never formally conceded defeat in last year's election, has vowed to lead the opposition to Lula's government, raising the stakes for a new administration. The 68-year-old former president, in a live webcast from the headquarters of his Liberal Party, said conservatives control Congress, and Lula's minority government would not be able to do what it liked with the future of the country. Bolsonaro has defended himself from accusations he tried to keep jewelry from the King of Saudi Arabia worth $3.2 million without declaring the gift, a scandal that has tarnished his claim to be an incorruptible politician. Bolsonaro left for the United States 2 days before he was due to hand over the presidential sash to Lula on January 1st. He said he needed rest, but critics say he was avoiding the risk of over a dozen legal investigations he may face in Brazil. I'm Tiana Cole.
Hubbard's is once again innovating the way you shop with its new online store, providing 24-hour shopping convenience. You can shop now for appliances, hardware, houseware, building material, and more. Free delivery island-wide. Start shopping now at hubbartshardware.gd. Safe, convenient, reliable.
I am Eddie Frederick. This has been Caribbean Perspective, a whole new approach to highlighting developments in the Caribbean. In the meantime, please continue to log on to CaribbeanPerspective.com for more daily news and more.